For the final project, I decided to read the book Fahrenheit 451. Fahrenheit 451 was written by Ray Bradbury and published in the year 1953. This novel is sometimes considered Ray Bradbury's best work, or the one that he's most known for. This dystopian novel was written about a futuristic society where books were outlawed and any that were found were burnt by people called firemen. The novel was adapted into a film in 2018 with stars including Michael B. Jordan playing the main character, Guy Montag. Bradbury wrote the novel during the McCarthy era, a time where people were getting accused of treason with no real evidence or reason of conviction. This was also considered the Second Red Scare, a time where Americans were paranoid about the threat of communism. Bradbury wrote this novel as a sort of warning of what censorship can do to the public and how mass media takes the public less interested in literature. Set in a futuristic America where the use of books is outlawed. The main character, Guy Montag, is a fireman. In the world of Fahrenheit 451, firemen do not put out fires, but instead start fires. In this society, people do not experience society, but instead live in a digital way, constantly watching TV and listening to propaganda on seashell radio, which is basically a pair of headphones that is attached to everyone's ears. After a series of unfortunate events, Montag reassesses his happiness with life. He eventually decides to read some books that he had stolen and hidden in the air conditioning unit. After reading as much as he could, Montag seeks the help of an old English professor named Faber. Faber tells Montag that in order to understand the importance of books, one must be allowed to read them at leisure and have time to process and act upon the ideas that the books propose. Montag and Faber conduct a plan to bring back literature by sabotaging the firemen and reprinting books. When returning to the fire station to burn the books, they get a call to a house and find out that Montag's wife had ratted him out and he is forced to burn down his entire house. After killing his chief and barely escaping, Montag finds a town full of book people who welcome him. A bomb is later released onto the city, and Montag continues with his new friends to find survivors of the attack and rebuild society. One of the main themes throughout the novel is the question of censorship. Should the government have control over what the people can and cannot read, see, or hear? Censorship has long been an issue in the United States since the creation of the internet. In the Constitution, the First Amendment states that people of the United States have the right to freedom of speech. But how does this work in the new digital age? Is it okay for big media to censor certain things, or is that a violation of the freedom of speech? In 1997, there was a Supreme Court case, Reno versus the ACLU, in which the question of censorship came into play. The case questioned the legality of the Communications of Decency Act, which was intended to protect minors from inappropriate internet materials such as pornography and explicit messages. The problem was that the act was very vague and left a lot of room for interpretation and misuse of the act. The question in this case was, did certain provisions of the 1996 Communications Decency Act violate the First and Fifth Amendments by being overly broad and vague in their definitions of the types of internet communications which they criminalized? The verdict was that the act did in fact violate the First Amendment freedom of speech because it restricted the freedom of speech by not explicitly defining what indecent communication was. Currently, it is illegal in the United States to censor internet content. In a way, this can be very scary, but also people have the right to learn whatever kind of information they want to know. Unlike the novel, people in current day have access to most forms of information. Another controversial topic about censorship is parental controls on media. Parents can set restrictions on what their children can see on basically any media platform and even on their phones. Parents can limit the amount of time their children spend on certain apps, as well as not allowing certain apps to be downloaded or used all through the touch of a button. On websites such as YouTube, parents can restrict the viewing of certain videos. These videos may contain nudity or other things, but parents can also restrict their children from seeing things like educational videos on topics they prefer not to talk about, or many other seemingly harmless things. Parental restrictions are another form of censorship, but they are not from the government, so it seems more acceptable by society. After all, parents are just trying to protect their kids, aren't they? There are many examples of parental censorship and how it can negatively affect a child's life. In fact, there was actually an entire Black Mirror episode called Archangel that was about this altogether. In the show, the mother inserts a chip into the daughter's head in which she can alter the way her daughter sees so she doesn't see any violence or the scary dog that she passes on her way to school. When the daughter realizes that she cannot see violence or blood, she ends up hurting herself just so that she can figure out what she can and cannot see. This leads to massive amounts of distrust between the mother and the daughter, as well as a multitude of mental health issues for the child. What can be seen by Fahrenheit 451, the First Amendment, parental restrictions, and modern-day cinema is the fact that censorship in large amounts can hurt the public more than it helps it. Sure, one may think that they're helping by shielding the eyes of the innocent to protect them from the dangers of the world, or in some cases make people think or believe certain things. But in the end, knowledge is always gained and sought after. It's just a matter of when and how people are going to get it. Another prominent theme in the novel is the use of technology and how it can take over one's mindset and everyday life. In the novel, technology has taken over and led to the decline of reading. New forms of technology immerse people into a story told onto TVs that are practically the size of the room. The things shown on the TV in the novel are just meant for entertainment and are often violent and have no real story or point. The novel also shows how people are constantly plugged into technology, whether it be through their ear videos or constantly watching television. We see similar things happening in current-day society with social media and streaming services. People spend hours upon end on social media, constantly concerned with the lives of celebrities and the drama of the world. They are also constantly being bombarded by advertisements coercing them to buy things that they don't need. Streaming services, on the other hand, provide endless hours of television at people's fingertips, where they can watch whatever they want for however long they want, allowing them to completely forget about the world around them or anything important, just like in the novel. In the end, the dystopian novel that Bradbury wrote about way back when, in many ways doesn't seem too far off from the society we live in today. Thank you.